Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge, and today I'm going to be doing the My Romance Journey book tag. This was created by Bex from Bex Reads, as well as it is a collab tag with like 10 creators, and so each of the creators kind of put in a question for this, which I thought was so cool. So there's 10 different questions, and each one of them was submitted by one of the romance booktubers who is a part of this. So also I want to say a big thank you to my channel members they are the ones who voted for this one for me to film this. So this video is sponsored by my channel memberships. If you don't know, I am a romance booktuber, reviewer, and reader full-time. This is my job, and so it's only with the help of my channel memberships and patrons that I'm able to do this. They completely sustain what I do here. So thank you so much to them, and I am so happy to do this video today. So I have a bunch of books in front of me, because I realized that for some of the questions, I will need to show some books. But I also may change my mind on some or like add some in here. We'll see. But I really like these questions. They're questions that I've answered some of them separately in different like Q&A videos at different times. But it'll also be fun to like put this together in one video. Because I actually had someone put it in my video request form that they would like a get to know me video, because I haven't done that. So look at it as this one. This will be a get to know me as a romance reader situation. So let's get started here with question number 1 is, about how old were you when you started reading romance, and do you remember the first romance you read? So I love answering this question. I believe, like, and when I look at it, like, there are a lot of different kinds of romance. And I do believe that I've read romance before this. Like, I know that I have. But the one that I always pop up and share is that it was Catherine Coulter. I actually have one of the books right here. This is one of my nice copy. I actually have like the original historical romance that I read, but it's very fragile, so I don't take it into videos. But here's the step back. And this book was actually in my like 9th grade English teacher's room. And again, I have the original. It has her name on the top of it, the teacher's name on the top of it. And this is a historical romance by Catherine Coulter. And that's the one that I kind of use as my like sparking off point, because I then read a bunch of books by her. And then I read Julia Quinn, which Julia Quinn will definitely show up in this video shortly. But that's really what I pick as like me focusing in on romance specifically, because before that, I was reading books that, without even realizing it, the romance was what I was wanting the most out of it. Like Sarah Dessen books, like Just Listen is a book that I loved. The relationship between Annabelle and Owen, like, it's still so close to me. And I wanted more out of their connection and more out of their romance than we would get, right? Because it was YA. Out of Twilight, I wanted there to be more like smuttiness going on in there. And even in like Little House on the Prairie, I say this, like, I loved the relationship between Almanzo and Laura. Like, I always loved that. But when I look back, when I tell this story of like what was my first, where I was like, this is purely a romance book, it is The Hellion Bride by Catherine Coulter. That is the one that like I can point to it as, now I was looking for romance, not reading other books and hoping for there to be romance. This was it. So, and I tell people I was like 14 or 15 when that happened. Number 2, did you deliberately seek out romance, or did you stumble upon it, and how? Well, I just answered that question too. I should have read ahead with that. Because yeah, that's the answer. I wasn't deliberately seeking it out until this. I saw the step back on it and I was like, what is this naughty little book? And I read it. And then I was deliberately seeking out romance after that. So look at that. I gave you a twofer. Number 3. Did you start with traditionally published or indie, and has it switched? So, yes, these were traditionally published. I didn't know about indie until BookTube, like straight up, which is 5.5. Am I going on 6 years or am I on 5? I'm on 5 years. I didn't even know indie romance was really possible. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know about it. I wasn't really using Amazon to find that. I was mostly reading traditionally published historical romances, and then a few other authors were like popping in. But yeah, I never read an indie romance until then. So I did strictly read traditionally published romance. Pretty much all of the YA and historical ones that we could get our hands on. Like, me and my best friend, I tell this story, like, we each were in different counties. Like, we lived in different counties, but we went to the same school because they would bus my school. And so she had access to a different library system than me. So I would get like 10 romances. She would get 10 romances. We would trade them off as we were reading them and then give them back to each other, return them, and get more. And we were just consuming so many. And that's how I read, like, we searched out like all the Julia Quinns, all of the older backlist Catherine Coulter. We were reading Eloisa James. We were getting into, who else did I read back then? Those are the ones that like stick out. We were scooping up all those. I was reading lots of paranormal ones, but they were all traditionally published. And the answer is if it switches. I will say that I take a bit more convincing for a traditionally published romance now. So I would say that's fair. Like I said, I have a lot of books in front of me right now that I'm about to share, and it is about 80-20, and the ones that are traditionally published are usually the historicals, because I have staple authors that I love that I will still buy their traditionally published books. But I'm much more willing to read an indie romance than a traditionally published romance, because I just find that they provide the deeper feels and the more steaminess that I want. So that's kind of my answer for that. All right, next. What was a romance trope you were afraid to try but ended up loving? Ooh, that's a great one. I didn't really like peek ahead at that one. I was focused on ones to grab books. What's what I was afraid of? Well, I mean, I was nervous to read romance and poly romance. I didn't know if I would like that. I've shared this before when I talk about sapphic. Like, I am pretty much like, I try to read the romance that like I'm attracted to. Like, I just do. I don't think that is odd to say. And so there were some gay romances that were getting recommended to me, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I will like that. Like, how will I feel about it? I won't lie. I mean, part of it is my upbringing too. Like, you guys know, I'm a Christian, I'm religious. And I was like, oh, maybe, I don't know if I want to read that. Will it feel weird to me? Will it feel taboo? This was also before I was reading so much taboo. So I'm just being honest. Like, I was nervous to read it, and it wasn't something that I would like gravitate towards. But then I actually read, there was a few authors who like tipped me into this. Some of them were Kristen Becker Ritchie, Katie Robert, and of course Elle Kennedy and Serena Bowen. Like, I read Him and Us, as well as Theirs for the Night by Katie Robert. That was like my first ones. And then I started her Wicked Villain series, and I read like a bunch of MMF. But yeah, I would say I was probably like scared to read those. Those aren't like, yeah. But I was scared to read that. I also was really nervous to read Captor Captive, which it just makes me smile. Like, it makes me smile. Like, my first Captor Captive was definitely in some historicals. Like, I absolutely read The Devil's Daughter and like The Devil's Embrace by Catherine Coulter. Parts of this have aspects of like Captor Captive in it too. So I had definitely read it before, but it wasn't called that. You know what I mean? Like, like, books weren't categorized by trope that way when I was buying them off of shelves at used bookstores, you know? So when someone recommended Twist Me by Anna Zares, which I kind of got to that one, like, did I read Dark Notes for, I don't know, but someone recommended Twist Me, which of course is this 17-year-old who gets kidnapped by an arms dealer and taken to his private island and basically made into his sex slave. I was so shooketh by that book. I felt like such a naughty girl reading it because I was like, this is crazy. Like, it just blew my mind. And then I was addicted to it, which is how it goes with a lot of like taboo or naughty things that we try. Like, we were like, nothing can be more taboo than this. And then you read it and you're like, well, it kind of is. So, those will be the two that I go with. We'll say gay romance and captive. Like, I was nervous about those in the beginning. All right. Is there a romance book you read early on in your journey that you would rate differently today? So this was very difficult, but I actually did grab two books, and they are both historicals because, like I said, those were my early journey. But I would also say Twist Me. Like, we'll just throw that out there. Like, my mind was, like, blown by that book. But I did try to revisit it about, like, a year ago. And I just couldn't handle it because, like, the ineffectualness of the heroine's every move is infuriating to me now. That complete powerlessness is kind of the point sometimes of captive, but I like there to be a bit more of an equal balance between them. Like, if the hero has a complete control, I want him to care what the heroine feels. And like, Julian just like does not give a fuck. He's like, if you're being bad, I'm going to punish you. I'm going to fuck you whenever I want. Don't hide yourself from me. Don't, like, there's no room for wiggle room. And now I just find that so infuriating that I can't. Like, I need the hero to give a little bit. And I feel like Julian manipulates her the entire way through that series. But anyway, so I would probably rate that differently. But there is two historicals that I would rate differently. And one of them, sad, like, this does break my heart. It does break my heart. But one of them actually is The Hellion Bride. So this book, and I'm not even talking about some of the literal, like, racier things and, like, this being at, like, a plantation in Jamaica and those things, because, like, that is the time, that is where they're going, that's what's happening. But the way the hero gaslights the heroine, like, and granted, she is manipulating him too, but like, she's being forced to manipulate him by her uncle, and he like drugs her and makes her think that he took her virginity so that she will be like blackmailed into marrying him, and then he takes her virginity for real. And though I do love that like lube is used in this book, which I thought was but he's using it because she doesn't want to have sex with him and he doesn't want to hurt her, so he uses lube so that he can consummate their marriage. And like, there's just so many things that when I tried to reread this, because I reread The Sherbrooke Bride with one of my friends, we did a buddy read, and like, I really enjoyed rereading The Sherbrooke Bride, which is book 1. When I stepped into The Hellion Bride, I made it about 50% in, and I was like, I know that I end up okay with Ryder, but it was too uncomfortable for me. Do I want to burn this book and say no one should read it? No. But I've just read other ways of doing these things in this book better now, and so it just didn't work for me when I would reread it. So this is actually a case of like, I know that I would rate it differently because I just did. It didn't work for me. And then the other one, and this is again one that I did reread. So this is like kind of cheating, but they're examples of it. An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn. So also I'm super happy it took me a long time to actually find a step back copy of this one. This is a gorgeous step back. And this was like my top tier Bridgerton book for many years because it's a Cinderella retelling and it follows that quite well. And there's Sophie and Benedict and they like meet at a Bridgerton ball, and then she like loses everything and has to become a maid, and he's still looking for this woman that he'd seen at this ball, and he refuses to marry anyone else. He wants to find her. And then they run into each other where now she is a maid at a party, and she's like being assaulted by the owner's son, and she needs to leave her job, and he like gives her a job, and then he gets sick and she's helping nurse him back to life, and then he wants her to be his mistress, and she's like, I can't be someone's mistress. And he's so fucking stubborn about this that he can't have her as a wife because he is a member of an upper class, but he wants her for himself. He wants her as a mistress, not realizing that like she is the daughter of a mistress, and she had no rights to anything when her father died. And him asking her to re-enter into that same scenario and not getting it through his fucking head and trying to blackmail her into being his mistress is infuriating, especially because his mother, his brothers, they would not bat an eye at him wanting to marry her because he's not the first son. He's not in line anymore. His brother had 4 kids already. Like, he's good. He's good. He can just be the second son that he wants to be. And he's so stubborn for me. So when I reread this book, there is a vlog out there. Maybe I'll tag it for you. Maybe you'll just have to find it. There's a vlog of me when I reread this book, and I cried because I was so hurt by how Benedict hurt Sophie. And he doesn't have enough of a grovel. Like, this book, I would be soothed if he had groveled more. But he rescues her from a tight situation, and she's so thankful, and so she's like, I forgive you. And I'm like, no, motherfucker needed to grovel for how he made this woman feel, where he holds all the power, and she has nothing. And he still like threatens her, and I don't forgive Benedict for it. I don't. A lot of people do. A lot of people think that I'm over the top about it, but I don't forgive Benedict. And this is a book that went from, again, being my favorite in the series, like right up there at the top, to being like a 2.5, 3-star read for me, completely because Benedict can suck dick. Okay, I don't know. And in the show, maybe he even will suck dick. Who knows? Who knows? So anyway, moving on from that one. That was a rant that we just had to get through. How has your taste in romance evolved over time, over the years? So that is a tough question. So I've listened to a few of the other romance tubers who made this video and how they talk about how it changed for them. And it's difficult for me to put into words because even though, right, I just ranted about 2 books that I don't feel the same about anymore. I can still very much love books that I loved back then. Like, there are many that I do still revisit, and I still get the same feelings. In fact, the feeling sometimes is even more amplified as we go. I do have much less patience for miscommunication and for third act breakups than I used to before. That was something that I just expected books to have because I hadn't read anything different. Like, there was always the dark moment or the third act thing coming in, and I just expected it to have to happen. And it wasn't until indie romance and expanding what I read that I started to realize there could be different ways to have it. Like, of course, there's still, like, in the third act structure, you do still need to have some kind of conflict, but when it is solely based on miscommunication or something like that, like, I struggle with that more so much now because I don't find the characters as relatable when they will fly off the handle to a third act conflict. And I'm going to get to some examples when we get into, like, asking about favorite books where I talk about, like, I need it to be more than just you overhear something and now you completely distrust this person that you were ready to marry or you were ready to, like, be with, and you overhear something and are like, I can't trust a single thing. I don't know anything. I can't be with this person because I, like, overheard this. I don't have a lot of patience for it. Also, and I know that, like, I don't talk about this as much as some other reviewers do. I don't just want banging all day to happen in the books. Like, if I'm in the certain mood for that to happen, I know which authors to go to for it to be there. But if you haven't built up my emotional connection, like unless it's a one night stand book where we're starting with the sex, or it's a dark romance where we're starting with that. If you're not having a deep connection between the characters for the level of sex that's happening in the book, I'm just not interested. I'll start skimming the sex scenes. And I'm someone who does read all the sex scenes. Like, I want the juicy details. Give it to me. I'm here for it. But if you haven't built them up, I don't want it. All the books on my very top books ever, and again, we're going to look at some of those, whether there's sex in the beginning or not isn't the thing. It's by a certain point in the book, are the sex scenes talking? Is the intimacy pushing the story forward? The queen of romance, well, the queen of my heart in romance, which we'll get to, she says, like, every sex scene should be doing more than just bodies fitting together. It should be changing something about them or solidifying something about them, and progressing something between the couple. Otherwise, it's just two bodies interlocking with each other. And that is what I'm looking for. For me, it doesn't mean I'm going to give the book 2 stars or, or DNF it if it is, but it's not going to be a favorite. Just when I am ranking books as like my favorite ever, and the books that I will constantly talk about, it's because the sex means more than just interlocking body parts. Doesn't mean that interlocking body parts can't be fun and that it won't be a good time, but my emotional connection to the characters needs to be engaged, as well as the sexual organs there. So that's what I would say about how my taste has changed. Is I definitely was okay with just being titillated by a book or just being turned on by the story, which is why some of those darker romances, I didn't need more than like the control and the like thrill of it. But now I'm like, but are you building the connection, or is this just, like torture porn, right? So there we are. Okay. What is the most powerful romance that you have read and that it left a lasting impact on you? So this is a question that I've answered many times recently and have and will. And I'm just going to keep it to the top one because a lot of the other romances I love, we will get to questions where I can share those. But it's a hands down scenario for me what the most impactful and powerful romance is. And all of my book refuge friends who've been around for a while will not be shocked when I say Outlander and the series as a whole, not particularly just the romance in here, but this is the beginning. Claire and Jamie, their romance has went through everything. It has outstood time and space and the loss of children and the birth of grandchildren and having to move and being attacked and sickness and almost losing a limb and war and like all these things. And it is still going strong and beautiful. And I love just this whole world that she created and everything going on. But as I've said, this may not be categorized as romance. It's categorized as fiction or historical fiction or fantasy fiction, like whatever. But the most impactful romance for me is Outlander. And it's not even close. Like, it's not even close. No one has touched it in my, 15 years of reading romance. Nothing has touched it. But we have some other fun ones to talk about. So, number 8. What was the romance that told you this is what I'm looking for in my personal life or with a partner? So, this one made me very excited. Let me check what the next questions are. Okay. So I have 2 main ones for this one. Let me just double check. Oh, and this one as well. So I have 3 to share for this. I'm trying to keep them like as realistic as possible because that's what I would be looking for. But one of them is still a fantasy, so we'll deal with it. But honestly, hands down, again, the one that I would look for the most in mine, I mean, it would be Outlander. For the longevity, and we get to see them through so many different things, but we'll change it up. And I will say Heartless for this. I love the connection between these characters. I love how they just see each other and appreciate each other and love each other and can tease and can just be a part of each other's lives in this very like unobtrusive way. Like they just meld together. And I mean, it has like its crazy start because Cade is so resistant to caring about anyone. He's got enough people to care about and enough that he's trying to keep on track. But Hurricane Willa just comes in and is like, upends everything and is like, you need someone to look out for you and to be there for you. And I will be the woman who does that. I'm going to be the woman who does that. And they're just so beautiful. I love their communication. This to me is my example of there isn't a third act breakup in here. There's a third act incident that happens. And they both take a breather, but it isn't a breakup. It isn't a pause. I was never worried that one of them is thinking about ending it. It's literally just like, we need to take a breather for a second. I'm gonna be back in just a little bit and then we'll talk it out. But I just want us to think about the implications of what we're dealing with and then talk about it. And I want that kind of communication. Also, there are multiple scenes where things are getting very like spicy. Yes, this book has some top-notch smut as well. It does. Where the heroine is trying to maybe play it off as a bit lighter to, you know, maybe kind of save her heart a little bit. And the hero's like, let me be understood. Let me be clear. This is how I'm feeling about you. I want you in my home. I want to do this and this and this with you. And this isn't a joke to me that like, I didn't just decide to sleep with you because I was really horny. Like I thought about it and you are it for me. This isn't a joke. This isn't just because we needed a spank and a tickle. Like I'm serious. And the way that he's able to just be, their relationship is so playful and sexy and fun, but it is also mature in the best ways. And that is what I would want for myself. I love it. Then we have the one that the world and the scenario may be very fantastical, but the connection and the respect and the beautiful love between these two is what I would want for myself. And that is in Treat Me by Grace Draven, and that is Louvain and Ballard. And though this is a Beauty and the Beast scenario, and yes, he looks like a forest man, he's turning into that. This is also a case of him and Louvain having a wonderful connection and communication. And even though they think this will just be for a short time that they'll be together, they are very honest with each other and communicate well about what they want, both sexually and both like outside of that. And they just feel so drawn together. And their like epilogue in this book, when they're having a baby together, and the heroine is just like, you better live another 100 years because I need every single day with you. And he's like, my sweet, sweet wife, that's not even close to enough time with you. And it just tears my guts out. This hero is also very respectful of the heroine's lost love. She is a widow, but her husband was great. He taught her to, not be ashamed of her body and to like ask for what she wanted, and he would please her. Like this wasn't someone who had been with a partner but then like didn't know anything about sex because it was like bad. Like no, she had it good. She had it great, but she lost her love, and so she's a little sad about that. She doesn't know if she could find it again, but she's open to it. She's open to having it. And they both are just beautiful. I love it. I would be so lucky as to have someone like Ballard. Warts and all, okay? Warts and all. And then the other one I want to throw up, which I don't want to throw up, I'm going to share with you, is going to be in one of my other categories too. But it is Wolf Gone Wild. The relationship in here is just so cute. It's just so cute. It's nerdy. It's sharing your favorite things with the person. They're both a little bit older. Well, he's a werewolf, so he's like 120 or whatever. But she's in her, I think, like late 30s even. Yeah, I think she's in her like late 30s. So this isn't like a brand new, you know, lady or whatever. They're just absolutely beautiful. And I love the little bit of like alpha that's inside our alpha mellow. And I just adore them. And I love them. I know the author like kind of based this couple a little bit off of her and her husband. And I think that's so cute. So this is a couple that I was like, you know, I would like something like this in real life. That playfulness, the big family, the found family that it is for him, but also like her family of crazy sisters. Like, I just love it so much. So that's definitely there. All right. Number 9, which romance books would you recommend to a newbie and a seasoned romance author? So what would you do? So let me see with these. Make sure that I did this the right way. Okay, we'll start with the newbie. Here, I think that I have this right. I have quite a few of these. So these are some I have for newbies. So I do want to hold up Wolf Gone Wild. I think this one's great. It isn't like overly like smutty or anything. There's not a lot in this one. In fact, the series does kind of build with some of that, but this is really fun. The plot moves pretty quickly. It's not overly long. It has pop culture references. It's very cute. So this is one I would definitely recommend to newbies, especially if they love paranormal or like fantasy that are like traditionally published. I think this one is really fun. I also have some examples of a couple like they're mafia romance, but I call them like mafia romance light because they have the like bit of danger. They have a bit of the like more fun, like sexy times going on, but they're not overly heavy where they'll like break your spirit. You know what I mean? Which is what I would consider more of an advanced level. And so for that one, we have to have a Sophie Lark. Like, the Brutal Birthright series is the perfect like intro to mafia. Like, honestly, it really is. It's so much fun. And I love that these are now can be in like Barnes and Noble. Oop, there's a spicy scene. We had to hide a little bit. But Callum and Ada, they're in an arranged marriage. They're like in a forced marriage, basically. Their fathers like make them do this. They are in the beginning just like super antagonistic, like trying to even like kill each other, but in kind of playful ways. Like, I know, trying to kill each other in playful ways. But honestly, this book is fun. It's almost a mafia rom-com is what it's been referred to as, and it's also a really great start to the series, which has books that are like all along the levels of darkness kind of, and it's just so fun. So I highly recommend this to newbies. It's a great place to start. And then again, another mafia series, just because I feel like a lot of other romance, like if you're a newbie, it's kind of just like start with those contemporary, so I didn't want to share like contemporary ones. But Neva Altaj is someone I've really been sharing. The first one is Painted Scars. I don't love Painted Scars. I honestly love to recommend people start with Broken Whispers, which this one does up kind of the darkness factor a little bit, but it doesn't have any like non-consensual or even dubious consent scenes. Like, this is enthusiastic, excited consent. It has a mute heroine. She can't speak because of an accident. There's sign language used. The hero is a single dad. He's also scarred. It's also an age gap. He's quite a bit older than her. And they are pushed into this arranged marriage, and he gives her space, but he also is really into her. And so he's slowly like winning her over to the point where she's like, are you going to fuck me or not? Like, let's go. I want it to happen. And I just love that. And this series does have some that get a bit darker, but they're short, they're fun, it keeps it moving, and so it's nothing super overwhelming or that's going to like, well, in my opinion, right, because it's my own, with my own triggers and stuff, it's nothing that's going to like cause you to spiral or be in, you know, a lot of agony with it or anything, right? Love that. And then I wanted to recommend a historical, and this was kind of difficult because I mean, I do recommend people start with Julia Quinn. You can just start with the Bridgertons. That's a solid thing that people would say. But I wanted to go kind of a different route and actually recommend people start with like Never Seduce a Scot. This is my personal opinion. Like, I adored this one so much. I love Evie and Graham, and I think that their arranged marriage goes very well compared to some like historicals where it's a lot more uncomfortable or not great for everybody. And Graham is just such a sweetie, and Evelyn is deaf, and people think that she is touched. They think that she has limited capacity, but he discovers the truth, and he just feels so lucky and blessed to have her, and it just blows me away. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. My lipstick always comes off my top lip, and it's annoying. So those are the newbies. The ones I would recommend for advanced, and I have a lot more for these because I'm obviously advanced, but they go through kind of all the levels. So I have two historicals that I would suggest for that. So I would suggest Lord of Scoundrels. Now, some people would recommend this for like newbie, but I don't, because I think that it usurps a lot of tropes and does things a lot differently. And I also think that the hero can be hard to put up with if you're not kind of willing to put up with him. But this one is a crazy ride. This one has a spinster, Jessica, and it has Sebastian Ballister, the Marquis of Dane, who is just a playboy and a troublemaker, and he never wants to get married, but he gets himself into a pickle, and the pickle is he needs to marry Jessica or face the consequences, and he chooses to marry her. And then they're in kind of this battle of wills, and Jessica just like refuses to be flustered by him. She refuses to let him like get one over on her, and he's just continually like butting up against the rock that is Jessica. But also he's extremely attracted to her stubbornness, and it drives him crazy, and I just love it. So this maybe is what we would say like medium. I'm not saying that it's like over the top hard, but it's a lot. Then another one that I recommend for maybe more advanced. Again, I feel weird saying this because I'm not saying that if you're a newbie, you like can't do these things. Like for some people, some of these romances might be their very first one. It just depends where you go, right? It just depends. But I have, again, The Magic by Lisa Kleypas. Now, the reason why I put this for a little more advanced is this one is high angst, okay? This is a high angsty book. It's a second chance romance between, he was a stable boy at her family home, and they were in love with each other, and then they get found out, and he gets banished from the family home, and he ends up going to America and making his fortune, and now he's back. She's still single. She's a spinster. She also now has some damage and some traumas, and he's there to ruin her. Well, really, he's not there to ruin her. He desperately misses her and wants her, and she's still there waiting for him, and she's willing to let him use her and do what he wants because she feels bad, and she wants this time with him that she can get, but she's never planning to like marry him or be with him, and that can be frustrating. Like this heroine, I was mad at her every time I've reread this book, every single time, I'm mad at her up until like the very last minute. And then I'm like, oh, I love you so much. Like, so that's part of the reason why I put it in advanced, is that heroine is angsty, y'all. She's angsty. All right. Now we have some dark romances. And yes, I feel like dark romances get put to the advanced side so much. Just because of how dark they are. So we're going to start with The Enemy of Old, because I have to put him on lists when I talk about books to recommend to people. And yes, I recommend you read at least some of Kresley Cole's earlier books before you get to this one. But the reason why this one is on the advanced for me is that Lothair is so fucked. He is true evil. Like, he is bad. But he has a fated mate, and she is a pretty tough cookie herself. But she is being possessed by a like death goddess, and he thinks that the death goddess is the one who is his mate, and so he literally wants to erase Elizabeth from inside her own body so that he can be with who he thinks is his mate. And he's willing to do horrible things and torture this woman, kill her whole family to make her life miserable so that he can have that. And I'm still rooting for his HEA through the book. So there's that. Then we have one that I feel like isn't even controversial anymore, but it may still be to some people. It may still be a controversial book, and that is why I'm sharing it. And that is Priest by Sierra Simone. In fact, I think any Sierra Simone can be considered a more advanced to read, because not only does she take on taboo subjects like religion and BDSM, and like she tells erotic romance stories, like she does. And that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Some people might just see what the premise is and they're like, oh, this book would be too much for me. I can't do it. But this was a book I actually read quite a few years ago at this point, and it still lives rent-free in my head sometimes. This is between a priest and a woman who starts coming to confession about an affair I think she was having, and he starts being very attracted to her and starts questioning his faith. And it's very interesting because a lot of the reason that he is a priest is for some interesting reasons. I don't want to spoil it because it's a big part of the journey. And I found this book to still be very respectful to the Catholic religion. From what I know of it, I grew up side along to some Catholics. I am not one, so I can't speak fully to that. And there are still some very like taboo or sacrilegious things that happen in here. So that is true. The point being, I think this has a lot of like emotional work that this book is doing. And it made me think about a lot of things differently, having to do with my faith and like where I stand with it, even though I myself am not Catholic. It made me think about those things in regards to how I feel about intimacy and sex and relationships and God and like all of those things. And I thought that was very interesting, but it might not be something everyone just wants to take on. So that's why I put this in the advanced side. We're going to keep pushing through these. Then, of course, there is Untouchable by Sam Mariano. This is a book that I will always bring up. I know I have my pretty cover copy of this one here. But this relationship between Carter and Zoe and the like mental work that Zoe does and the relationship between them, where like we think Carter is a psychopath or a sociopath, and it really becomes clear that there is his own trauma that he's dealt with that has him acting this way with Zoe, and how Zoe is also willing to kind of be his punching bag in certain aspects, which I know that doesn't sound the most attractive, that she would be his punching bag for certain things, but it is fascinating to me the relationship that these two are in and the back and forth that they have. And I'm always stunned every time I read it. Every time I pick up this romance, I am moved by it in a new way and a powerful way. And I love that. I love it. I love it so much. But it is one that it starts with a non-consensual scene. And there are multiple dubious consensual scenes throughout it. But this is a case of like their sex scenes, when she gives a little to him, he gives a little to her. And so by trading her body and these encounters, she's able to learn more about him and advance their relationship in amazing ways. And this is one of the few, like honestly, there's a lot of dark romances I read in twisted scenarios. This is one of the few where I actually believe their relationship by the end, and that Carter, for the most part, like is going to be well with Zoe. And I think that's really cool what Sam Mariano does with that. And then the last one I want to share that I think is for a bit more advanced, although I did read this one quite a while ago, is Dark Notes by Pam Godwin. I think Pam Godwin is great for anyone who is delving into dark romance, but is really willing to think about it, because the way that sex and power and intimacy is used in these is amazing. And this one is a student-teacher relationship that does kind of get started when she's still underage, but the things that she's been through and lived through and survived make her more mature, but also immature in certain ways. Like this woman doesn't understand consent. She doesn't know what it means, or that she can revoke it if she wants to. And Emmerich, what he teaches her and shows her, and as their relationship grows, he gives her a power that she never had. So even though some people might look at this and say like, well, he kind of grooms her to be his like perfect, like, no, I think he actually like helps her rewire her own brain. And I mean, yeah, they end up having a kinky, beautiful life together, and it's great. But this one is very dark. This one has a death of a pet in a very traumatic way. This has rape and molestation that's happened to this heroine for like many years, and it's hard to see, but it makes her HEA with Emmerich even more powerful to me. All right, this video is getting super long. I knew it would be, though. We're talking about my romance journey, and it's a long one. And so the last question is, in your eyes, what are 3 perfect romances? So I do have many to add to this list, but I decided to pick one in 3 complete, like, different categories. But I do want to give a shout out to, like, I want to give a shout out to an whole author, and that would be Kennedy Ryan. Her books are difficult for me to get off the shelf where they are currently at, so I didn't grab them. But I have, like, the last 6 books I've read by her have been, like, perfect to me. They're beautiful and brilliant, and I love her books. So Still, Real, Before I Let Go, all, like, perfect romances to me. I just want to say that they all count. But because I just didn't want to mention like 3 Kennedy Ryans in a row, I'm gonna mix it up. But just know, when I think of perfect romance, I really think of her a lot. But I want it to be fun and have like 3 separate ones here. So like I said, we're gonna go in 3 different ways. A mafia romance that I think is perfect is Carnal Urges by J.T. Geisinger. Yes, I have my it's not a discrete cover, my alternate black and white cover, which I absolutely love. I have 3 copies of Carnal Urges, by the way, over here, including one with a note from Daddy Declan to me, which is just delightful. But this is between Declan and Sloane, and oh my God, do I love these 2 so much. This starts off as a captor-captive, but Sloane, she's not going to take it easy on her captors, and very quickly Declan realizes that he's bit off more than he can chew, and now all of a sudden he's the head of the mafia, which he didn't want to be, but now he has this captive that he took, and she really is very intriguing to him, and he would like to just hand her back and give her over, but now he's too entrenched. And these 2, the power dynamic between them and the way that it swings back and forth, and the way that Declan is able to give her something she didn't even know she was missing because she thought she was in control, she thought she had the power she wanted, and he's like, actually, I'm going to show you what real control actually is and what you actually are looking for and needing, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful, okay? I love it. Then there is a historical that I think is perfect, and it is Thief of Shadows by Elizabeth Hoyt. This is what I always say, this is like historical Batman. It's a virgin hero. He also takes care of a children's home for like wayward children. And our heroine, her name is Lady Isabel Beckenhall. She is older than him. She is a widow. She is also barren. She's had some very traumatic miscarriages, doesn't think she can have children. She is supposed to like mentor him and like help him be able to impress the ton so that he can keep doing his job, so that he can keep doing what he's supposed to do to take care of the kids. Meanwhile, like I said, he is historical Batman, and he is the ghost of St. Giles, helping those less fortunate, helping keep the place safe because the law isn't able to do that. And they are just thrown together, and they are both enamored with each other in completely different ways. This is perfect for me because Isabel doesn't think she has anything to offer to Winter, and that she wouldn't, like, that she doesn't have anything to offer anyone. And he very much disagrees with that and doesn't let her put distance between them. Even when she tries to hurt him by saying cruel things and trying to push him away so that he won't want to be with her and that he can have a chance at children with her and all, or children with someone else, he is so patient, and he says, you are trying to push me away. I'm not going to let you. We're going to make this work. It's going to work out. It's going to be okay. And I just love that. I love that so much. I love that this hero kind of like refuses to let there be distance between them, and the heroine, she kind of has no choice but to give in because they're perfect for each other, and I love that. I love that. And then finally, this book had to make its way into a book about, or into a video about my romance journey, and that of course is The Takeover by T.L. Swan. This was my favorite book of 2021. It is still one of my favorite books forever and for always. I love it. It's right up there with Outlander and Heartless and the books like that. And this is the story of Claire. She is a widow with 3 sons, and the billionaire playboy Tristan Miles, who their lives collide with each other and they just can't escape each other. And though there are demons from the past and uncertainties about the future between them, they just can't get enough of each other. And the playfulness in this book, the humor in this book, the steam in this book, the gut-wrenching like grief in this book is everything. This book is perfect to me. I will hear no shade against it. Even if people don't like it, keep it to yourself. I don't care. It's a perfect book to me. And it's a book that every time I go back to it, it still moves me the same way. I was transferring notes and annotating to a copy that I sent to someone, and I still cried 3 times. I wasn't even fully reading the book. I was transferring notes and I cried. Like, it's so powerful. It's so beautiful, and it will always be up there for me. So then, of course, the last question in this is there anyone that you tag? I'm leaving it open to everyone. Most of my friends have been tagged in this already, so I'm sending it out to you. I'll maybe send a tag to my friend Jo. Maybe she'd be interested in doing this one, but otherwise, I leave it up to you. Thank you for coming on my romance reading journey with me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it helps you know me better. If you would like some recommendation videos from me, you can check those out up here. Also, check out some of the other ladies that did this tag and find out their stories. Get to know the romance community a little bit more. So thank you so much for watching, my friends, and I'll see you next time.